After 30 years and 2 years of delays, Tom Cruise returns to the big screen as Maverick in the sequel to Top Gun, appropriately titled Top Gun Maverick. So, was it worth the wait? For the most part, yes. Now, for me, this wasn't a movie I was eagerly anticipating. This wasn't a movie that I was, super excited for. This wasn't a movie that I kept getting disappointed by its delays. Every time it was delayed, I didn't go, oh, well, that's a shame that I have to wait even longer, because I really didn't care. In fact, I only saw the original Top Gun for the first time 3 days ago. And I say that just so you know the context in which I'm reviewing this film. I'm not reviewing it as somebody who grew up loving the original. I'm reviewing it as somebody who saw a Tom Cruise action movie. And yeah, this movie will definitely have more meaning and emotional weight to those of you who grew up with the original. Those of you who are my generation and see the original, probably not going to be as emotionally invested or emotionally affected by it as your parents' generation or maybe your grandparents' generation, depending on how old you are. But, for me, seeing returning characters and what they did with them didn't have a lot of emotional weight to me because my gap of time between seeing these characters was 3 days as opposed to 3 decades. That being said, I did still enjoy seeing them return, along with a new batch of younger, aspiring Top Gun pilots, the main of which is Goose's son, played by Miles Teller, which is honestly perfect casting. You put Miles Teller against a picture of what Anthony Edwards, who played Goose in the original, looked like back when the original first came out, and there is such a striking resemblance, it's kind of eerie. The second half, though, is definitely better than the first half. Not that the first half is bad, it just relies a little too much on the nostalgia of the original. The opening of the movie is practically the same as the original, and there's scenes throughout the first half that are almost shot for shot what the scenes were in the original, but with these new characters. But the second half is where it starts to pick up a bit. And if you have motion sickness, do not see this movie on a big screen, because the dogfights and aerial training sequences are super intense. There were actually times where I was clenching my fists on the seat rests and lurching back, during these scenes where I was like, wait, this is just a movie. I can't get hurt. I'm not in danger. These people are actors. They're not in danger. I need to calm down. That's just kind of how invested I was in these dogfights. If the whole movie had just been, 2 or 3 hours of dogfights, that would have been fine with me, because that was awesome. The dogfights in this movie are so awesome. But, the film overall, it does have the same problem that films like The Force Awakens and Ghostbusters Afterlife have, where it's very much trying to get by solely on the legacy of the original and introducing new characters as the next generation that are trained by a main character from the original. But the second half proves the film could have stood on its own. And I said in my review of the original that it did in some ways kind of remind me of Star Wars, and this one really reminds me of Star Wars. It's the original Star Wars New Hope, because the goal of the film is to blow up this device from the enemy army, and when they're briefing the pilots on their mission, and even when the mission is being carried out, it was eerily similar to the trench run Death Star sequence, even kind of towards the end, which I'm not going to spoil the end and what happens during this final battle, but it was very reminiscent of the Death Star trench run. I'm surprised they don't get sued. So, despite it kind of trying too hard to rely on nostalgia and a pretty kind of pace from the first movie first half, I still enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was exciting. I just wish it had stood more on its own and tried to be more of its own thing, trying to expand on the original instead of kind of relying on the first film to carry it. But overall, I would still say for me, Top Gun Maverick gets a B, an 8 out of 10, and a 4 out of 5 stars.